Hello, everyone. Hello to some of our favorite friends. Hello. We're just going to give everyone a second to completely join. But hello. We are excited to have you for our student program this evening. My name is Razia Cooper, guys, and I am the engagement coordinator for the NASW New Jersey and Delaware chapter. We are excited to have you guys here today with us. Good evening. I'm just going to ask you guys really quickly, let me change the setting, to drop in the comments or in the chat, I should say, not the comments, but drop in the chat where you guys are viewing, listening from, and if you guys are MSW or BSW students, you guys should be able to chat with everyone. But we are so excited to have you for our MSW program. Are you guys able to? Yes, I see. You guys can chat with everyone. We are so excited to have you for our student program. As you guys know, NASW National, we provide student programs every third Thursday, and it's our incentive to ensure that social work students are learning outside of the classroom and expanding their understanding of what is going on in the profession and how they can really navigate the profession once they graduate. So we are excited to have you guys here today. This program is one that is going to be really jam-packed with great information. We have our facilitator, Sojourner White, and if you guys don't know about her, she is a famous social work celebrity, especially when it comes to the spaces of traveling and remote work and really thinking outside of the box as a social worker. If you registered for today's program, I'm going to give the disclaimer really quickly. You took a code of conduct that you would be respectful to our facilitator and to your colleagues, because everyone on the call is your colleagues. And we are going to be monitoring the chat to make sure that we are keeping that code of conduct as we interact this evening. But we encourage you to speak, use the chat. If you want to come off mute, if that is what the facilitator allows, then you guys can do that. But just interact, talk back, answer questions, interact with your colleagues here in the chat, and be prepared for an amazing presentation. I'm going to hand it over to our facilitator so I don't take off too much time rambling, but we are excited to have you here tonight, and we hope that you leave tonight's presentation understanding a little bit more about how flexible and how much freedom and how broad this profession is for you as you enter into the profession. So Sojourner, you could take it over.
Hello. I'm going to share my screen. Thank y'all for attending. Let me get my stuff together. Let me see what we got going on in the chat. Okay, we got, let's see, Michigan. I'm in Wisconsin, so you're like my cousin. I got Maine, Ohio, Atlanta, North Dakota, a lot of MSWs, Oklahoma, Philly, Houston, love to eat there. Spent 2 weeks there. Okay, we got a good mix of people here. So thank y'all for coming. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. We've been talking about this for a little while, so I can't believe it's October. But my name is Sojourner White, and I'm going to talk to y'all about how to create freedom and flexibility, particularly for me, using my experience as a remote social worker. But we're going to talk about what freedom and flexibility may mean to you. I'm going to talk for a little bit, and I'm not a facilitator who likes to just talk at people. So I do have some questions for y'all. So this is going to be not a call and response, but it's going to be a bit interactive so we're not just staring at each other for an hour, because we all had long days and we don't want to be too zoomed out. So again, I'm Sojourner. I use she, her pronouns. I have a lot of titles. I'm a very multi-hyphenate person. So I am known as a remote social worker. I'm also a travel journalist and creator on the social media streets. I say I have a very irresponsible digital footprint. You can find me anywhere on any platform at this point. And also a train travel queen. It's kind of my area of travel and where I hope the future of remote work, if Amtrak is listening, I'm a train girly and I would love to be able to just travel across the country. So, and work remotely. It's like a dream. But really, I also created Sojourneys back in 2017. And it's evolved with me as I studied abroad in Spain. I taught English abroad with Fulbright in Spain after graduation undergrad. Spent a semester in Berlin when I was in grad school for international social work. So really my mission is to help 9-to-5ers fulfill their career goals and bucket list dreams to bask in more freedom and flexibility outside the office. I know you'll see the articles of folks who quit their job to travel the world. Baby, these student loans will not let me do that. So I am always trying to find ways to to kind of make my way around the world on someone else's dime if I can, and really trying to create my own path. And so I'm gonna be monitoring the chat too a little bit as I kind of see y'all popping in there. So yeah, and I do a lot of writing too, in the travel space, which is like my outlet outside of being a social worker, which I always recommend folks have things to do that aren't social work related. We carry a lot. And so having balance to kind of talk about some things, whether that's writing, pottery, art, I don't know what you can do. Just having that balance, I think also adds to that freedom and flexibility. And so why are we here? Why did she bring me here? Why did Raisa bring me here? Really to understand what freedom and flexibility means to us, like to you individually. I feel like people have preconceived notions of what that could be. And so we really want to talk about what that means for you in particular and have you think about that. 'Cause I know what it means for me, but only you can define that for you. I will tell the honest truth about the struggles in building that freedom and flexibility with a 9-to-5, especially in a very demanding and, very all-encompassing field like social work, and then just provide any tips and resources and skills that will get you close to whatever that freedom means for you. But first, I always like to start at step 0. So when we talk about creating freedom and flexibility, you have to kind of start with the vision that you have for yourself and your future. At work, I always say one of the biggest issues with clients, I'm more of a macro, I work in research and evaluation kind of work, social worker. And what I find is that a lot of orgs want to do good, but don't have a vision for what the end product is. They want to do these things and they get a consultant to do these tasks, but what is the vision that you want to hold? And I think that's where I always start with folks talking about what is the vision you want to hold for yourself as you're in this pursuit of freedom and flexibility. So again, this is the interactive part. Anytime you like see this light bulb, that means I'm gonna ask you a question. And one of my questions is using your senses as you are able, sight, what if I can sight, smell, hearing, touch. What's the last one? Taste, I think. Yeah, taste. Using your senses, what comes to mind when you hear the words freedom and flexibility? So you can pop it in the chat and I can read out loud, or if you want to unmute and share, what does freedom and flexibility essentially mean to you? I see Wendy said autonomy. Tyler said the financial ability to own my time. Abigail, work-life balance. And if I mispronounce your name, my apologies. Jaleese, making my own schedule. Sam, paradise, and having that balance between work and school. Kiana, travel, work-life balance. Love that. Katrina, financial ability to travel, make my own schedule. Raymond, bougie coffee, Thai food, and helping others. That's very specific. I love that for you. Alex, ability to relax. Caitlin, choosing to rest as a leisure activity and not a requirement to recover from the work day / work week. That is a sermon. Stanley, time to catch my breath. Anna Marie, time for things other than work and chores. I know that's right. Dwayne, interested in train work. Oh yeah, I'll talk about that in the Q&A for sure. Kiana, the ability to just do whatever that means at the time. Lydia, sense of accomplishment in both personal and professional goals. Lydia, another Lydia, time for self. Cheryl, time breathe, the ability to not stress and on my own time. Kiana, family time without feeling exhausted. Bet. Okay, we got people who love Thai food, love that. Anna George, being out of debt. I know that's right. And having the ability to work from home a fair amount. I agree with all of that for sure. And if you have any other reflections, feel free to pop them in the chat. But I start with this because I think we have to envision where we want to go and where we can plan our way to get there. I think it's one thing, we've been taught to go to school, do this and do that, and it's kind of been planned out for us. But one thing I think I struggled with when I graduated, both kind of with undergrad and grad school, is figuring out what's next. Like once you do all the things, like you go to school, you get a degree, okay, I'm gonna get a job, and then like, do I just work forever and that's it? Like what else is there? And so I think thinking about what is that freedom and flexibility? Like Lisa said, what are those choices that we have that we're able to kind of plan for ourselves? And so I think it's important because especially as a social worker, people will tell you what freedom and flexibility means to them and convince you to believe what they believe. Like that is the only way to do a thing. And that is not true. I think also as a social worker, I found people project on us all the time. All the social work stereotypes, what we can and cannot do, to kind of dissuade you from dreaming bigger or make it seem like your dreams aren't possible with the path you've chosen. And in order to know where you're going, you need to have vision. As I've said, you need to know where you want to go, what that's going to look like for you. And so definitely figuring that out helps you to Lydia's point, that's the opposite, right? It's like you have to make it your own, and people will always try to convince you that their own is the own that or the only way to do a thing, and that's absolutely not. If I've learned anything from being out of school, is that everybody is just out here on vibes, like trying to figure it out every single day. So most people don't know what they're doing, and we're all just trying to figure it out. But if you were to ask me what my freedom and flexibility was, I will pull this up every year. I make a mood board at the end of every year or the beginning of a year, and these are some images from my mood board from this year. Some things I've done that I wanted to like kind of embody as I come into the year. But I think I'm a visual person. I love writing, but also I'm a very visual learner, and so I actually have part of this mood board on like the back. Oh, you can't see, it's blurred, but on my phone, it's my screen, and I make it so every time I open my phone, I see it. And I like that because it reminds me of kind of what I'm working towards and kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I put all the things too on the side. So if you ask me, my freedom and flexibility is traveling with the train. I have a new 1-year-old niece. So being a traveling auntie, the carefree Black girl era is definitely mine. Remote working, I know some people mentioned that. Working in my PJs or from my bed is also something I really love to do. Time to work out, solo traveling, travel writing, influencing, like these are things that encompass what I think is freedom and flexibility. So I encourage you, maybe before the end of the year is out, maybe at the top of 2024, to kind of make your own mood board of what you want this vision for yourself to be, because it's a great thing to kind of come back to and reflect on every year to see what you have done and also how you've embodied that. And for me as a social worker, that freedom and flexibility has included remote social work. So it was a pivot. I did not study remote social work. It's not a thing to my knowledge that you can study in school. But I pivoted. My master's is actually in international development. That was my concentration. I went to the Brown School at Washington University in St. Louis, and then my specialization was social entrepreneurship. And I had these big dreams to like go abroad, be this like cool international traveling social worker. And then March 13th, 2020 happened. The pandemic hit. All the jobs I was applying for disappeared. Some of those companies didn't come back, to be honest with you, as we come or in kind of this post-pandemic era. And I kind of had to pivot. And so I had a friend who said, hey, I'm looking for someone to work in evaluation. I know it's not what you want to do. So you can try it for a little bit as we figure out what a pandemic is together. And that's where I currently am still today, through almost 3.5 years later, as a remote social worker in the research and evaluation consulting space. So doing a lot of work around social service programs and organizations, working with higher ed institutions, nonprofits, foundations, government, a little bit of everybody. And that really inspired me to write this remote social work 101 guide last year. Part of my travel content was because I am traveling. I talked about working remotely, and people were like, how are you doing that as a social worker? So I kind of compiled all this information that I had, and I put it in a free guide, and I can definitely send the slides out to be sent out to you all to have access to everything. But then now I have a weekly or almost weekly a newsletter where I send out remote social work roles in various sectors every week, so folks can kind of see what's out there as well. So that is how my freedom and flexibility has manifested over the years, and kind of what I am doing now. Let me see. Yes, I will send out. I see some people. Yes, I will send out the slides for sure, because there are some links and stuff embedded in here that you all can have. And for the newsletter, I can send the link out too. And when you sign up to get the guide, you're automatically added to the newsletter too, as well. So I'm going to kind of talk about, as for me, that remote work is my freedom and flexibility, just some things that are 5 steps in particular that you can be doing. Really focus on the first 3. I'm going to talk about applying for jobs and interviews a little bit, but I'm not really a career coach, so I don't want folks to get the wrong idea, but I can share some tips. But I think the first 3 steps really set you up to kind of look at, okay, what do I want? That vision board, that mood board of, that freedom and flexibility you all put in the chat. How do we make that possible? And here are some steps that I recommend that are in the context of remote work, but you can adapt this if you don't want to work remotely to whatever area that you want to work in. So step 1, I will always say, is do a skills analysis. And this is really looking at what skills do you have to currently in this moment. And I actually did this in grad school. A lot of these things I did in grad school as I was preparing to graduate. And this was one of the activities I did. So just off the dome, can anybody tell me 3 skills that they know they possess? If someone said, like, I need somebody who can write, I need somebody who can do this, like, what are 3 skills that you have, you can do, that you're really good at? Just, you can put them in the chat or you can unmute. Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, at least for me, like, I guess like documentation and like data collection, like being able to, I guess, like do a session or just like transcribe information like in a clear and concise way, and also use like statistics as well.
Nice, nice. Thank you for sharing. I see Anna said, I can balance a budget. Okay. Produce financial statements and do personal one-on-one therapy. All really good skills to have. Anybody else? Let's see. Caitlin, organization, documentation, interacting with adolescents. You are a teenager caseworker. Love that. Lisa says, seek out the resources. Cheryl said, organize, communication skills, and tech savvy. Katrina said, organize, writing, English major in a past life. That is an underrated major. That can get you real far. And research. Kiana, organization, time management, and leadership skills. Lisa, communicate in sign language. Love that. Definitely a good skill to have. Tyler, specialized assessments and very skilled at meeting people where they are, no matter the setting. That is beautiful as a social worker. Cecilia, empathetic, encouraging, organized. Anna Marie, organized, patient, bilingual. I'm also bilingual in English and Spanish. Spanish was my undergrad major. Stanley, seek out resources and training to work in rapid rehousing service and compassion. All good skills. Kiana, planning, rapport building, communicating effectively, leadership, developing programs. Yes, all of these are skills, and I love y'all can name them like off the dome. That's really good. So it'll make your skills analysis also really good. But this is what I recommend, right? So if you're thinking, okay, maybe I can't name all my skills at once, I recommend doing a brain dump. Just like you can write them down, you can put them in your notes app, you can type them, whatever that means for you, and just brain dump all of the skills you can name. Like even skills you might think are mundane or skills that you aren't think are like soft skills or hard skills. I don't like that language, but I understand why it exists. But if that helps you contextualize it, dumping all of that out. And then I want you to divide them into 4 categories, right? Thinking about what are your strongest skills. So the ones y'all named in the chat, like real quick, I see Brianna said integrity, service, and ability to have resources within the community for inmates who are homeless upon release. Like those are things that y'all can name real quick. Those are probably your strongest skills, right? So brain dump those, organize them into that category. Then talk about your growth skills. Instead of saying they're your weaknesses, they're just your areas of growth. So there are skills that maybe aren't as strong, but maybe you want to use. You can put those down. And think about those skills from that brain dump, skills you love to flex. Like if you love flexing that you can meet folks where they're at, like that's a skill you have. That's a skill that you love. And also skills that you can do, but really aren't your favorite to flex. Y'all know there are things we have to do as like a social worker that we don't want to do. They're like, I could do that, but I really, really, really may not want to. So that is a skill. Like there may still be skills you have, maybe not your favorite. But I think organizing your skills in this way kind of helps you see how you can get closer to your vision and figure out what you want to do next. And then you have the skills that pay the bills. I think this is really key for us, especially as social workers, to know what are the skills that folks are going to pay us for in a field that people are always telling us you're not going to make over a certain amount of money. You can't do that without a license. All those notions that we hear. So you want to review all your skills that you've brain dumped and then analyze which ones you have been paid well to do. Like which are the ones that like I can eat off of this, I can pay my rent off of this. Like, what are those skills that pay the bills? I want you to highlight them or make a separate like skills that pay the bills list. So, they're not only your strongest skills, they may be the skills you don't like, but they're the ones that are going to make sure that you can feed yourself, your family, whoever you have in your life. And I say all this because you got to know your zone of genius. I think one of the things that social work does a disservice as a field, especially in grad school, is like they make it seem like it's bad to brag about what you can and can't about what you can do. Like it's a bad thing to say, I know I have this. I know we're always in service of others, but you also have to know your zone of genius. And if you're not familiar with your zone of genius, these are activities that you are uniquely good at in the world and that you love to do so much so that time and space likely disappear to you when you do them. And so I'm gonna send these slides out so you kind of read more about your zone of genius, but knowing this will really help you figure out, okay, what am I really good at? What can I really dedicate my time to get closer to that vision that I have for myself, to get closer to that freedom and flexibility. I learned about this a few years ago and it kind of changed the way that I view my own skills. And so I highly recommend kind of digging into what it means to be in your zone of genius. So based off of that, it's very quick. Can anybody name like what their zone of genius might be? I know I named the skills, but is there something that that you are uniquely good at in the world? Like if you ask me, like I could talk to you about train travel. Like I can talk to you about train travel for an hour, for 10 minutes, for 2 days. I can tell you the ins and outs of it. I can tell you what trains to take in what countries that are my bucket list. Like I can rattle it off, right? Same with something I do at work. We do a lot of storytelling evaluation, which is a specific type of qualitative research. And so I could talk to you about storytelling and how to get young folks to tell their story, or how to get older folks to tell their story, or how to do that in evaluation. Like I could talk to that. I could talk to y'all about that off the dome real quick. Kiana said business planning and finances. Cheryl said financial planning. Caitlin said house plants. My mom is a urban farmer, so that resonates. We got plants everywhere, inside and outside. Racia said, ooh, communicating and engaging with people. Yeah, so knowing that zone of genius, Lydia said school social work. So knowing that zone of genius really kind of helps you build that confidence, especially as you are looking towards graduation and job hunting and all that stuff. Knowing what you can do makes it really easy to convince somebody else to do it or to believe in it. Tyler said their broad experience with social work. Sandra said crisis response and foraging. Okay. Stanley said affordable housing. Sam said empathy and compassion for LGBTQ plus populations, crisis response, and multitasking. Cheryl said also helping people tap into their skills and gain confidence. We need more of that for sure. Lindsay said being relatable. Raymond, I gotta figure out this bougie coffee you be talking about. Addiction recovery and community engagement. And then Lisa said all things tea. My mom is also a herbalist, so we have herbs all in our house. Love that too. Lydia, a nursing degree. Oh, I love that. I want to bring mind, body, and spirit all together, holistic health, especially with youth. So yes, all those areas that y'all can just name and have the confidence to do, those are definitely your zone of genius. And so again, I'll send this out so you all can read a little bit more if you're interested in figuring that out. But all of that prepares you for step 2, which is then researching opportunities and sectors within social work. This is something I did before I became a social worker. I became a social worker by accident. It was not like a life goal to be a social worker. I just happened to find this MSW program that a friend of a friend recommended to me. And she was like, you want to travel, you want to do work abroad, maybe. And I was in the AmeriCorps program Public Allies at the time, but here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is where I'm from and currently live. And she said, well, why don't you go into social work? And I laughed at her. I'm like, girl, what? Like that, like, my stereotype of social work was like case management, foster care, therapy. Like that was what I understood social work to be. But when she mentioned it to me and I discovered international social work, it opened up a whole other area of like all the things that you can do with a social work degree. And so I highly recommend step 2 is just researching those opportunities and social work sectors. So I know you all have kind of mentioned it already, but what are your current areas of interest in the social work field? Tyler said hormones. Katrina said aging population, behavioral health, counseling. Lydia said youth, holistic health. Amber said research and social welfare policy. Okay. See, we got youth counseling. So that Kiana said youth counseling. Racia said research and higher education. Caitlin said trauma survivors, specifically sexual assault survivors. I love to focus on working with teenagers, the adolescent population. Raymond said helping those coming out of human trafficking. Brianna said school social work, correctional social work, current work for the NJDOC as a social worker and loving it. Okay. Ashley, medical social work in the human resources field. Anna, I want to use knitting, crochet, yarn, dyeing, other fiber arts to introduce mindfulness through art to people who have trouble processing trauma verbally. Oh my gosh. Y'all are amazing. Hold on, we got some more. Forensic social work. That sounds very much like NCIS or CSI or something. Medical social work, working with terminal/chronic chronic illnesses. Cheryl said that. Lydia, eating disorders, ending mental health stigma, normalizing minds of all kinds. Stanley, integrating Buddhism into your practice. Lisa said food policy, especially marginalized communities of color, and also a very crafty person. Kiana, community development is growing on them. And then Cecilia said counseling. So a nice variety of folks all across the social work spectrum. We got Lindsay, medical social work. Oh, MSW/dance in your practice. Love that. Jamie said cultural revitalization in tribal communities, a journey of knowledge and healing. I do some work with some Indigenous evaluators. So that sounds like a lot like what they are often talking about as well, and love that. But I always say knowing your options, knowing your options and knowing how broad they can be. This was me as a baby in 2020 graduating, because I did not have actual graduation as a pandemic grad, but we still took photos. But knowing your options and figuring out how you might want to land post-graduation. So I know you are still kind of in the midst of your program. I definitely recommend like doing networking, not only with people who want to be your mentors or like for your future career, but even with your peers. I think people definitely sleep on, I guess, what lateral networking, I think it's called, but like networking with other folks who are also in the MSW program, because those are the relationships that you'll probably continue to have as you stay in the field and continue to develop and see each other and maybe overlap in other areas. So definitely not sleeping on the networking with each other. I attended a lot of lunch and learns and webinars when I was in grad school. Like if I was on campus and they had someone speaking about what they were doing post-graduation, I would just go in, even if I didn't know what they were talking about. I'll just sit in there and eat my lunch. Also, because they probably had free food and I was broke, but wanted to kind of go in and kind of talk no, or not talk to them, but also ask them questions if I did have questions, but also listen to what they were doing. That's how I learned that consulting was a thing. I didn't know what a consultant did until grad school. But also going to alumni and career services. So those are services that you're probably paying for on your campus. So talking to them, even as an alum, you can stay in contact, I believe, with most career services to get any additional support. So those are multiple ways you can know your options outside of like Googling into the abyss and doing those informational type interviews. And so if you're curious about remote social work, this is in my guide, but reviewing the social work landscape, what I have found, if you are curious in remote social work, these are areas that I see a lot of remote roles. I think when you think about remote social work, you have to kind of think, okay, can what I do, like, will the impact of what I want to do translate well virtually? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. So you have to kind of figure it out. But I would say, like, if you're interested in evaluation and like research, that can translate well remotely. I've seen some policy roles that may require you to be in person at sometimes. If you're really good at a topic, so I know someone mentioned like holistic health. If you're really good at that and that is your zone of genius, you can create trainings for other organizations or become a trainer and facilitator in that area. And that can be your role if you really want it to be. Social work or like tech social work is also on the come up. I don't know if y'all familiar with the Corporate Social Work Collective, but they do a lot of work around that. Philanthropy and development. So if you really want to work at the foundation level or with fundraising, you can do that. And then telehealth. I know therapy is a lane for a lot of social workers, and we're seeing a lot more virtual health organizations come out, like LifeWorks and Able To and Talkspace, and all of those different kind of companies are coming out. So as you're reviewing the landscape in social work in whatever area you're interested in, just think about, okay, if you want to work remote, can it be remote? Because not everything can be, remote, which is a very real reality for us in social work, but there are some options if you are interested. Here are just some titles I've seen over the past few years. A lot of them vary as well. But I know I saw some people who said they're interested in like school social work. I've seen a lot of people pivot from school social work into like learning and experience design or learning and development specialists, because that's one area. I know some folks mentioned doing counseling, so like mental health therapists, like telehealth is really common. Like DEI work is also pretty common, but also being a project manager or a project coordinator or program coordinator are just some different types of roles to look out for if you're interested. If your freedom and flexibility includes being remote, here are some possible ways to do that. And so I'll say that so you can find alignment, right? You need to research the roles or opportunities that you're interested in and then print and save their job descriptions. I did this in grad school when like my first year. I went and scouted like the UN's website when I thought I wanted to work at that level. If I wanted to go to a big international organization, I researched their job descriptions and saw what skills they were looking for and tried to figure out how could I align my coursework and practicum to be ready to apply for those jobs in like 2 years, you know? So that was one thing I did early on, also throughout my social work career. And then I want you to analyze that skills list. So that very first list you made, analyze that with those job descriptions to see how can you align yourself, and do you need like additional certifications or classes, or do you need to upskill? And if you're not familiar with upskilling, it's essentially where you're at a job and you kind of you use that job to prepare for your next job without your job kind of knowing, in a way. So if there are some skills you want to get but you don't want to get a certification, you can kind of go and say, okay, well, I want to get experience in this. Let me talk to my supervisor to see if I can get experience in that while I'm still here, you know, and they might see it as initiative, even though you're plotting your exit. So it's kind of the reality of working in a 9 to 5. And so if you are looking for remote social work roles, you can like segment your searches when you're in different websites to only show remote opportunities. I would say nowadays, as people are trying to go back into the office, even though they say like a role is remote, you need to read the fine print. Because remote nowadays can be hybrid, 100% remote, or remote within a certain state or country preferences. And that's really for people who are looking for remote jobs that require licensing. I'm seeing that quite a bit. And again, focus on your skills, not just your degree. Yes, you are a social worker, but you are also a facilitator. You are also, I think people said training. You're also like a community health worker. You know, you have all these other things that you can provide. So don't get caught up in what's on your degree. And also lots of traditional jobs that are remote, like ours. We still have a lot of meetings. I will say that I be in meetings a lot. So be mindful of that if you are someone who wants to travel to and work in different time zones. And if traveling is part of your freedom and flexibility as you're kind of searching for remote work roles or even just roles in general, looking at what are those policies, like how much vacation time are you getting? Is that negotiable? Looking at that to kind of see where you can make it flex, because every company is different. And whether or not you can travel often depends on the tax purposes. However, some companies turn a blind eye if you are not in the country. So again, that depends on the company. Don't quote me. I'm not a lawyer, but just want to put that out there for that. Oh, that's the wrong slide. Did it go all the way back? Oh my gosh. Let's go. Here it is. And so step 3, after you do all of this, is identifying your transferable skills. And can anybody name what are some like common transferable skills that folks have? This is the area I find that a lot of social workers who I talk to struggle with on figuring out what skills they have that are applied elsewhere. Active listening, yep. Analysis, says Wendy. Tyler said documentation, data collection, documentation, leadership, interpersonal skills, yep. All those things are definitely on the list. And don't sleep on your soft skills. Soft skills are, you can teach somebody how to use a system. You cannot teach somebody at like their big age sometimes, empathy. And I've seen it in the workplace, and having those interpersonal skills, and Katrina mentioned empathy and relationships, those will get you so far as you get into the workforce. If you were able to kind of navigate conflict well, that's also a great transferable skill. Tyler said tech savvy, especially in a remote work world. Absolutely, getting to know different CRM systems, so like Salesforce and Asana and Slack, like all those kinds of things are really good to know. Caitlin, super random at making professional phone calls. Phone anxiety is real. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely a skill. Interpretation of body language and nonverbal cues. Social workers are definitely good at that. So y'all have a good foundation of transferable skills. And so these are what Google says. Like if you search transferable skills, this is what pops up. And when I saw these, I instantly thought that a social worker can have all of these, all these skills a social worker can possess. You all mentioned communication, listening, time management. As someone who manages folks, that is definitely a skill that I'm always looking for in folks who I may want to hire. Critical thinking, creativity, interviewing, motivational interviewing. I'm sure all of us have gone through at some point thinking about that. Interpersonal skills, project management is a really common one because you will always be juggling multiple things as a social worker. We absolutely, Tyler, exactly. We do all of these things at once. And so do not sleep on your transferable skills either. So at this point, we're talking about, at this point, let's just review. You have your vision, right? You have your skills, you understand the landscape, now we got to figure out where you fit in. And this is where we kind of review and kind of do what I was talking about earlier. And as you're researching and trying to figure out those transferable skills, you need to look at job description. So these are some I've had for a while. So these are probably not active jobs, but if you're curious about what it looks like, this was a EAP counselor position that I had used for a different presentation, but here's what they were looking for: a master of social work, additional licensing, crisis intervention, counseling, and assessment, case management, customer service, and EAP experience, right? And so, as I mentioned earlier, this is something I would have done in grad school. I would have found this and like went through it to see, okay, do I have that skill? Do I have that skill? How do I get that skill if I didn't have it? And so I recommend doing this with any job that you're interested in, so you can see how you are aligning yourself with these roles and figure out, okay, like where are my transferable skills for this role? How can I play those up in this space? Where are those growth skills? What don't I have? And so you can use you can go on your dream organization's website, see if they're hiring, and just take the description and use it as your guide to figure out what you want to do next. This is another role, it's like a training program. So I mentioned if you're interested in training and facilitation, they wanted folks to do online training. If you had content knowledge, this is where your content knowledge, which I think is one of our strongest points as social workers, comes in. So if you have a lot of knowledge in human trafficking, I know people mentioned, like, keep coming back to holistic health. There were a bunch of things you all mentioned in like the chat. If you're really good at medical social work and can train others, if you're really good at writing and can train others, those are definitely roles that are out there. And so this was one that I had found that was remote, that was looking for a client and relationship building, online training, human trafficking knowledge, project admin, conflict resolution, and facilitation skills. And again, you can go through these job descriptions. Chances are you won't have everything in them, but you can work towards attaining some of those skills. And so here are some ones. You all mentioned a lot of them, but here are some more transferable skills to think about, especially if you want to go remote. Program management, project management, I see all the time. All the time. Those are two of the top ones. Proposal and grant writing. I know someone mentioned they were English major. You have a bag to be made out here. The people are always looking for grant writers, for sure, and having that English major background is really helpful. Youth development work, there are a lot of virtual type programs, but I will say youth development a lot of it is in person, but there are some virtual opportunities. Training, facilitation, cultural competency, research and evaluation, counseling, writing, planning, community organizing. Like, these are all skills that can be adapted in so many different ways. So hence they are transferable. And so the last steps I want to talk about are steps 4 and 5, which again, I'm not like a career coach. I know some folks, if you're interested in getting some resume writing and whatnot, I do have some resources I can send out to you all from folks who specialize with social workers, but I do want to touch on applying for jobs and prepping for interviews a little bit. And so again, I'll send this out um to you all, but these are websites I have found that are good if you're interested in like remote world or like the social impact space, which tends to be a bit mix of remote and hybrid. These are some places that I recommend to folks. Idealist actually has quite a bit for our area. If you're interested in working in the nonprofit world, there's a lot there, but again, you have to read the fine print because they'll say they're remote and then they'll actually not be remote. But if it's not an option, if it's not an opportunity for you, then you can go and use them. There are certain companies I found. So if you have like a social work, public health background, I know that's really common. CVS Health, United Health Group, Able to, LifeWorks. If you have more of an education background, like the school social workers, or you're interested in that, there are some other ones you can kind of tap into company wise. And then if you're interested in international social work, which is a cool area to be in, there's like Relief Web, DevNet Jobs, Global Jobs, UNDP, UN Jobs. Those are the kind of websites that you can tap into for that. But my main thing, and it's something that we say at work, and I do cuss quite a bit, I've been keeping it kind of tame here, is talk your shit. This is the thing that we say at work all the time. And what this means is when you go into interviews, you need to talk about yourself. And this is one of the biggest things that I find that social workers have a hard time doing. It's like believing in ourselves and talking our shit and saying what we need to say, what skills we have, what degree we have. People are really shy, like, well, oh, I don't like, I want to be in service to others. That is great, but what does that mean when you're not able to feed yourself? Like, what does that mean when you're not able to advocate for yourself? And so this is when you talk about who you are, what you do, your accomplishments, exactly. Like talk about it. Like this, people want to hear it. They don't want, like, yes, they love our passion. Yes, they love our life story, but they want to know who you are and what you can offer their team. And do not be scared to sell it. Yes, exactly. Who's at that in the chat? Kesha. Yes, don't be afraid to sell it. And don't be afraid to embody, like, because y'all have experience, pre-degree, you have professional experience, you have lived experience. Use that to your advantage. It is yours. And do not let anyone tell you that you can't talk about that. Obviously, you like have a pitch, you kind of talk about yourself in a certain way and kind of have an opener, all that kind of stuff, but don't be afraid to talk about what you can do because you got it. So don't be afraid to speak it. And so my last little section before I kind of turn over to questions is tips and resources that have been helpful for me as I have navigated doing all the things like being a remote social worker, being a trained traveler, being a journalist. Some things that I think are helpful. Number one, a project management system for you personally. This is actually what I use to balance my travel life and my side business, like my side travel business. But I love Notion. It's like my favorite thing. I go in here every Sunday night and organize my week because I would not be able to do the things that I do if I did not write it down. If I don't write it down, it's not happening. So I highly recommend getting a project management system. Obviously, you can use whichever one works for you. If you're a pen and paper person, do that. If you're an iPad digital planner person, do that. But mine is Notion, and this is kind of what it looks like for me. Some other ones are like Asana and Trello and Airtable. If you are kind of someone who's trying to figure out how to have better time management or project management, these are some things that I have used in the past or I have had friends use in the past that are helpful for them. But I am a Notion girly. I live in my Notion. It is my favorite one and it's free. So that's also good. My tip number 2 is to never stop learning. This was like the biggest thing because I did not have a robust evaluation experience when I got hired. And so I was doing a lot of Googling. Like I had transferable skills from social work that I definitely used, but now I'm a director. And so them transferables don't be transferring like they used to because I have a whole new set of like responsibilities and whatnot. So I'm always learning and reading, and you can do things like Google has a lot of the popular like certificates, like the project management one. I think I know so many folks who have done that one. UX design, if you want to go into more of the tech space, that's a great one to do as well. But never stop learning, never stop kind of figuring out how to, enhance those skills. So YouTube, you can learn anything on YouTube. YouTube, I will Google a thing. The first thing I had to create like a theory of change once, went straight to YouTube. I'm like, I'm a visual girl. Talk to me, show me a picture. Like I went straight there. So do not sleep on YouTube either, but Google certificates, Skillshare, Coursera. There's like business coaches on social media too, like TikTok is also like really popular to learn all kinds of things nowadays. So use your free platforms as you see fit, or you want to pay for stuff, you can also do that. I also recommend time blocking. I know this is something you probably may already do, just balancing school and work, but I'm a big on calendar blocking. Again, if I don't put it in my calendar on my page, it's not happening. And also I use the Pomodoro method to like you do 25 minutes on, 5 minutes break, do like 2 to 3 times, and then you take like a longer break afterwards. So yes, ChatGPT, that was not around when I was in grad school. I would have been putting a lot of stuff in there too. So definitely tap into some of that stuff. AI is probably that's a whole ethical conversation, but you can use it to your advantage if you see fit. And then tip number 4 is to create accountability. You cannot do this alone. I feel like I know, so as like, yes, I travel to do all the things, but right now I live at home rent free because I have supported my family as I'm paying off my student loans and trying to do all the things, right? And so I think there are ways to create accountability in your life because you can't do this alone. This is part of my team. We were at a conference last week. We all presented and whatnot. So using like people you have and having that support system where people have similar mindset to you to build like a mini collective or accountability partners is really helpful and kind of helping you get towards your goal. There will be times where you need to kind of isolate and kind of put your head down and do things, but you just like, I think Audre Lorde says, you cannot heal in isolation. I don't think you can grow in isolation either. And so having other people there is also great. So tapping into your friends and family, and again, networking while you can, because when you graduate, there is no like organized place to network. There is no like class to go to for real. So tapping into
Sojourner, you're muted. Hold on. How can I unmute you?
Hello.
Yeah, we hear you now.
Got you. Sorry. I didn't mute myself, my bad. So yes, my tip number 5 was to use social media strategically. So I'm not saying again you have to be a content creator. It's not what I'm saying. But if you want to kind of build a personal brand or use it as a way to network, it's out there for you to use. I've had people reach out to me for like informational interviews and stuff, and I've talked to people like 20-minute conversations through LinkedIn. I check mine pretty frequently. I know a lot of folks also check theirs too. So follow orgs that you want to work for, people. There's like a lot of like hashtag job fairies on there. So as you're looking to kind of graduate, following folks who post jobs is also a great resource on LinkedIn. So it may seem a bit daunting, but use it to your advantage. It is a free platform. So make the most of it as you're kind of pivoting into your next stage of your career. And then my last tip is to know it's okay to evolve. I think sometimes we get scared when our social work career dreams or dreams in general pivot or change, but change is going to happen. I am not who I was when I enrolled in my grad program in 2018. What I thought I was doing was not this. I posted this a few days ago, but I presented at my first like professional conferences at the American Evaluation Association conference last week, and then the Culturally Responsive Evaluation Association conference the week before. And if you would have told me like 2018 me that I would be presenting as an evaluator, I'm like, girl, I don't know what that is. Like, I don't know. So don't be afraid to evolve. You will change and your dreams may change, and that's fine, but you should embrace that growth. But knowing your worth, talking your shit, and knowing those skills can help you build that confidence to like go on to that next step or to make that pivot or that transition that you need to make. Because again, I never thought I would be doing the things that I've been talking to you all about today. But my last thing is that no matter what, believe in your vision for freedom and flexibility, even when others may not. Remember that your skills transcend your degrees. Don't get bogged down by I'm just a social worker. Like, yes, you are a social worker, but what does that mean to you? How do you define social work based on your experiences that you have? And as always, take time off and find balance. I am the queen of telling my coworkers I will put vacation time on their calendars for them because I do not think we should overwork ourselves. And so taking time off and finding that balance, I will say transparently, it's a bit easier when you're not in school. You don't have homework after classes, and you're not balancing working and practicum and also taking classes. But rest is necessary. You can't move to your own vision of like freedom and flexibility if you're not resting, if you're not taking breaks, if you're not using the Pomodoro method, right? If that's your way to take breaks and build that into your schedule, definitely do that. And yeah, just don't let folks define your social work journey for you. If I had listened to what folks told me I could and could not do, I probably wouldn't be here doing the things that I am doing. So you are your biggest cheerleader, but having other folks around is also not a bad idea to support you. And that is it. I will open the floor for questions. I also put my email in the chat if you want that too. But yeah, are there any questions? Where's the chat?
I do want to ask one question. Can you touch on your train work? Because I know that was a
Yes.
topic.
Yes. So yeah, so train travel kind of happened on accident. I'm from Milwaukee, where I currently live, and I went to school in St. Louis, and so I've been taking the train for years. Like to like around the Midwest, Milwaukee to Chicago on the trains like an hour and a half. So when I would like I'll be bored in Milwaukee, I'll just go to Chicago to eat for a day. I just hop around, sit in the park, like relax a little bit. And then in 2021, I booked the cross country train ride from Chicago to California. It's like 3 days on the train because I was like, I'm not flying because of the COVID requirements. I was scared of being stranded somewhere. So I decided to do more domestic travel in the meantime. And I just kind of booked that trip on a whim and I shared it on social media and it blew up. And I became the train travel girl. And people kept asking me, well, where are you going next? And so I just kept booking train rides. I really loved it. I think it was the first time, because my first time going outside of the country was in 2015 to study abroad for Spanish. And that was my first time ever. And I kind of got caught up in the international travel life. But when the pandemic kind of grounded all of us, I had to redefine what travel meant. And I did that through train traveling. And it's one of the only forms of travel where I feel like I don't have to plan much because the views come to me. I like rode through the Rocky Mountains. I've done the train ride to like Glacier National Park from Milwaukee to Portland, which is like 46 hours. I've done LA to Seattle, which is like 35 hours up like the Pacific Coast Highway. So yeah, I just kind of got into it because it was a way for me to travel, but also relax. I'm like a traveling homebody. I love being at home, but also love traveling. And with the train, I get a room on the train and I'm going somewhere. So it's like my perfect kind of background and experience. And now I kind of write about it as well for other publications. So yeah, that's how I became a train traveler. Very much not the plan, but I love it. And I've done some really cool stuff with Amtrak for a partnership and looking to do some more in the future. I see some questions. Does working remotely negatively impact salaries? Like, let's say a lot of jobs require LCSW, micro, yet I prefer macro work. Does not taking those jobs at the micro level mean I have to settle for a low salary? So this depends. I feel like earlier on the pandemic, people were like, oh yeah, you can be remote and there wasn't like a salary difference. I'm starting to see more job descriptions. They're like based on your location. They put larger salary ranges. So one, we're seeing more salaries being posted, but there's like larger range. I think one job the other day was like between 65,000 and 110. Like that's a big range, and they're doing it based on cost of living. So I personally think those kind of salaries are like a red flag to me. However, in other cases, they're a measure of equity because if you're living in New York and you're living in like Milwaukee, those are two different costs of living. And so they're trying to account for that at the same time. So I will say that depends. But I have found personally, I'm not as familiar with how much folks with LCSWs are making. If anybody is familiar with that, holla in the chat. I have found that it hasn't really hindered my experience because I went into research and evaluation. I think it depends on the sector as far as what salary it is, but I don't think working remotely negatively impacts your salary. It's just a different kind of salary package. Um, and macro work often doesn't require a license. So it really depends on what area, like research and evaluation. And I would say policy jobs probably pay relatively well. Like I was told that I should accept like 35K a year when I graduated. And I said, with what loans? I took out more loans than that to go to grad school. So I would say if you have a certain salary range, negotiate. If y'all have a negotiating class, I recommend taking one. I know my school offered it, but I have not seen a very big impact on my salary either. Mine has gone up. I think when I was first hired, I was hired at like 50K out right out of graduation, and now I'm at 90 in 3 years. And I went from like a project strategist to a director role. So that also is like a jump as well. So more money, more responsibility. It's kind of the trade-off for that. Amber, have you ever had a period where establishing the vision for what you wanted was difficult, or do you have advice for those struggling with having a vision? Like maybe they're just trying to make it, but they don't know what making it looks like. Yes. After the pandemic, it's why I stopped writing my planning. That's why I do digital planning now, because it became really hard for me to write stuff down when like all my dreams were like just like went kaput once the pandemic hit. And so for a year, like I think I didn't have a 2-year plan or 5-year plan or anything for myself until like recently. I started thinking about where I want to be in a few years. And so for me, it was just taking that time off to just kind of do things. And then when I felt moved to kind of make a vision, I would. I feel like it's really hard when for me, I was really big on planning to then have something out of my control hinder my plans. And so I believe in taking the time out to kind of think about it, give yourself space. But also don't stress yourself out. Like if the vision thing is too much for you, just sometimes you need to like go through the motions to figure out what you want to do. Like sometimes it's not about like seeking your purpose every single morning when you wake up. Sometimes it's about I'm just trying to survive today, and then over time as you kind of get more comfortable with it, figuring out, okay, this is cool, but like I want something more. It's kind of the realization that I had within the past like year and a half, 2 years, which is when I started doing the visioning again. So I'm also big on journaling, writing stuff down. If I don't know what making it looks like, I will write my way till I find out what it is, as well. So I don't know if that's helpful to you, but those are things that I have done. Yes, I'll drop my email. Yes, I'll send out the slides too. How do you navigate the process of getting paid insurance claim with clients? I don't know about insurance claims. I don't know what you mean by that. So the way my job works, we are consultants under one organization, so I don't have to like do independent consulting. Like we're independent consultants, but under one roof, essentially. So I'm not worrying about my own insurance or payment. Like we have an operations team and everything like that. So we have projects that come in and we work on them through there. So that may be more for folks who are like entrepreneurs or independent outside of like a traditional job model. But for me, it's kind of how it works. I think those are all the questions I saw. Did anyone else have a question? You can unmute or drop in the chat. Oh, you're welcome, Sandra. As a macro-focused social worker, have you seen this remote vision succeed for clinical micro-focused social worker? So because I share it on social media, the algorithm helps social workers find me. And there have been some folks who are clinical. I will say a lot of them are probably in private practice from my knowledge. So that is where I've seen the most success from clinical micro-focused social workers. There are some virtual companies that folks have done, but I would say the biggest hindrance for that is licensing. That's where it becomes a bit difficult when you're crossing state lines. So that's why I think the private practice is a bit more flexible for them to work in that area. But I do see people who comment that they are like therapists and whatnot. So it is possible, but I think you really have to find the company that allows that. For a student that is interested in remote social work, is there anything I should be focusing on? Yes, Sam. I would say focusing on how you can attain as many skills as possible when you're in school, because you have the time and space to do that. I think it's a lot harder when you're out working and also trying to attain skills. So learning on the job is nice when you have that space, but also it's very time consuming at the same time. So I would say focusing on any project management or program management classes or skills you can get. Um, I'm always going to shout out evaluation and like research work because they are always hiring like a research associate, coordinator, manager, like they're always looking for people in that area. So if that is your jam, I know it's not for everyone, but that is your jam, looking into that. I'm trying to think what else. But any way you can refine your skills, I think is what you should be focusing on. But those are some of the top ones that I am often seeing. And then, as I mentioned earlier, tapping into those networks that you have available to you on your campus if you're still in your in your program. Yes, I agree. Program management and community outreach coordinator are great entry level roles, for sure. And even anything that says like associate, if you're interested in like doing the job description method and looking for a job and aligning yourself, associate, like whatever associate will probably be a good entry level role, or even coordinator or manager, depending upon your years of experience that you already have. But if you're looking for more entry level, associate, coordinator kind of positions are a great place to kind of look and compare those skills. Yeah. Anybody else? No?
Anybody? This is going to be the final call for questions. So if anyone else has a question for Sojourner, please unmute, drop it in the chat. But I think that this conversation was such a rich one, especially about just focusing as students or entry-level social workers on the possibilities that are endless and how remote work is really a thing. I've been remote since I graduated, and I don't even know how it would be like for me to work in an office. So I think that it's important that you start to write out your vision even now and align it with the things that make you happy and the things that you desire for yourself. So thank you so much for all the students for jumping on today and participating and all the feedback that you guys have provided in the ways of answering questions and participation. All of the recording for this program and any resources that is provided to us by Sojourner will be sent out to you guys within a week. We are thankful that you guys took your time to spend your Thursday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are with us. We look forward to seeing you for our next student program. Remember, every third Thursday, NASW National Student Programming takes place. And there are amazing programs that are coming up in the coming months. I believe we have a program about social work education, and that's going to be a really good one, especially as you explore what it looks like for you guys as you navigate your educational space and your future as a social worker. So thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to give you guys back 15 minutes of your time. But once again, thank you for spending the evening with us. We look forward to seeing you next time. And thank you so much, Sojourner, for being here and answering questions and facilitating such a great conversation for our students and emerging social workers.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for you all. Graduation is so close, I promise. For you. And yeah, and good luck. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm irresponsible with my digital footprint. You can find me any platform at this point. To send me a message, and I promise I will get back to you as soon as I can.